and I busy the schedule. Shit, I had to get it together. Every time I hit the
Welcome to Sports Music and Other Ish. I'm your co-host, Vic.
I'm your co-host, Big John, aka the Black Jerry Maguire. Today we have Mr. Josh Jones with us today. Josh, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself, man?
I'm good. So first thing I want to do is let you give a background of yourself to the viewers, and then after that we're just gonna go in.
Okay, cool. My name is Josh Jones, man. Grew up in the inner city of Houston, Texas. Went to Westbury High School, graduated 2001 from Westbury. Dual sport athlete. Signed with the Anaheim Angels, which is now the Los Angeles Angels out of high school. Signed my first contract at 17 years old. Played professional baseball for 9 years. And then once I retired from baseball, went overseas, played professional basketball overseas for another 8 years. And then slowly working my way into youth development with a baseball academy in the outskirts of Houston area.
Josh, so tell me this: at 17 years old, signing a professional contract, how does that feel? How was you able to handle that?
Man, to be honest, it was, it's like I don't really share my story much, but I remember when I signed my contract, the scout came over to the house. Basically, the GM came down. The GM came down from Los Angeles, from Cali. We did a little small workout, and then the scout came to my house, man, and he gave me the contract. And it's a funny story because I wasn't old enough to sign the contract by myself because I was 17. So my mom had to sign as a guardian, and it had its good and its bad, but I wasn't ready for the stuff that came with it. Like, as far as the baseball part of it, I was completely fine with it. But when it came to like just, having money at a young age and being in a position of, prestige and how other people perceive you, I had to grow up very fast.
Yeah. Okay.
I had to grow up very fast.
So whenever you had to, when they were scouting you, mm-hmm. and you had to work out, they came down to work you out, did you already have a feeling they were going to sign you at that point? Like, was this something that you had already anticipated, or was it something like, okay, they came prepared with the contract, you kind of on the spot, you got to make a decision?
No, because leading up to my senior year, man, I worked out for almost, not every MLB team, but I worked out for a lot of teams. And it just seemed like it was just blowing smoke. It seemed like nothing really come from it. And by that time, I was going to verbally commit to UMass for basketball. So UMass was knocking on my door, and I had like Rice University, and I had a lot of other basketball schools that was knocking on my door. So baseball was really in the back of my mind. Like, I went to all these MLB workouts. Nothing's really coming from it. So I'm going to play basketball. So like my mindset was, I'm gonna go to UMass or Rice or one of these big time Division I basketball schools and just play basketball. Because like I said, with baseball, I worked out for maybe 10, 15 MLB teams, but it seemed like nothing was coming from it.
Yeah.
Josh, so to get to the point where you could either go baseball or basketball, like nowadays, one thing I noticed, a lot of these kids, they specialize in one sport or the other. So you got baseball playing year round, and then you got basketball playing year round. How did you juggle that being a two-sport athlete?
I think it was just about your peer group. I had my group of friends that played basketball, and I had my group of friends that played baseball. So it was easier to, I guess, be better in basketball because everybody played basketball. But when basketball season was over with, then I start hanging out more with my baseball friends. So I was able to juggle the two around. But growing up in the inner city, basketball was like easier to become good at or better at because it was socially accepted. Growing up in the inner city, you play baseball, it's like, oh, you're a sellout. You ain't good enough. That's how it kind of was at Westbury. So when I got done with basketball season, I literally jumped right into baseball, and And I just kind of changed my peer group and started hanging out with my baseball friends.
Got you. So what was that like? So you just hooped during basketball season, and then after basketball season you was done, and then you went straight
Crazy.
baseball?
Because it's the seasons overlapped.
Mm-hmm.
So basketball season might have ended in, let's say, February, right? Yeah. And then baseball season started like middle towards the late January. So soon as my last basketball game, like the next day, I would be at a baseball tournament, and I never really had the opportunity to get in baseball shape because as soon as basketball was over with, I was heading straight into baseball. But I was just talented enough, to be able to compete at that level with not really being in full baseball shape.
Now, you say you wasn't in full baseball shape. How much difference is it in baseball shape versus basketball shape? Obviously, totally two different sports, but you would think the conditioning of basketball kind of would help you out.
I guess when I say baseball shape, I mean like my timing, right? Like getting my timing down, getting my vision down. I mean, because I got the reason why a lot of our kids gravitate to basketball and football. Basketball was easy to me because it's an athletic sport. If you're an athlete, you can contribute on a basketball court or a football field, whether it's defense, whether it's hustling, but in baseball, it's mechanical, right? So when I say baseball shape, I mean like getting my hands back in shape, to the bat, getting my hands to the ball, getting my front foot down, getting my timing down. That's what I mean when I say baseball shape. As far as athletically, like going get the ball and not being tired, I was fine with that. I just meant like getting my timing, because in baseball, when it comes to hitting, it's all about getting your timing down.
Gotcha. Is there anybody that you modeled your game after as a baseball player growing up?
Man, I was always like Ken Griffey Jr. Like that was like because I was an outfielder. So growing up seeing Ken Griffey Jr., that was like the kid. So that was like my role model, man. And I know we'll get to that later, but it was crazy when I signed with the Cincinnati Reds, man. I'm in the locker room with Ken Griffey Jr. I see him walk by, and the crazy story is I'm 21 years old and his picture's still on my wall. And that was like a person that I was, in camp with. But yeah, I always admired Ken Griffey Jr., Barry Bonds, your Gary Sheffields, stuff like that, just because, we all come from like the same path. So I've always admired them.
Can you discuss your professional baseball career with us? And just
I'll kind of break it down. So I was committed to UMass. The UMass coach had left there and went to Villanova. So it slowly became Villanova, Rice, and all those schools. My last baseball game in high school, I had an Angel scout come to a game, knew who I was, but they were there watching Bel Air. We played Bel Air last game, had a good game. He gave me a card, told him to call him. And like I said, at that time, basketball was out of my mind. I was like, I'm going to hoop. Baseball was out of my mind. I'm like, I'm going to play basketball. I'm done with baseball. I'm going to go to this big D1. I'm going to be in the NBA in 2-3 years. And man, all of a sudden one morning I woke up and it's like God was talking to me, man, and told me to call this guy. So I got the card. I called him and he came up to Westbury High School, worked me out, told me, he heard about everything that was going on. Long story short, I ended up taking money to become a professional to play baseball. So when I took money, I lost my eligibility for NCAA. So I ended up going to, my parents were like education. My mom was real big on me, going to college and getting my degree. So I ended up going to Dillard University, Dillard in New Orleans, because it was an NAIA and I had a full ride there, but I was still able to be a professional athlete and also be a collegiate, basketball player because it wasn't NCAA. Ended up playing there, became an All-American, NAIA All-American in basketball. And then I got released from the Angels and signed with the Reds. When I signed with the Cincinnati Reds, I ended up going to play basketball at Arkansas Tech. And then the Reds told me I couldn't, play basketball anymore. So I had to stop playing basketball. So I signed with the Reds, played a year or two there. and then I ended up finishing my career with the Florida Marlins. So over the course of the years, I went from the Angels to the Reds to the Marlins.
Let me ask you a question. So through all that time, even from high school to the pros and your college, the coaches, what type of coaching helped you get to where you are? You know, you have those coaches that are hard on you, got those coaches that motivate you and inspire you. What type of coaching got you to where you are?
Man, to be honest, I think that's why I am the way I am with my baseball academy, because I never really had that coach that cared, you know, and I didn't really understand that until I got to the next level and I realized that you're only a social security number. You know, in high school, my coaches let me do whatever I want to do. You know, I wasn't a rebellion kid, but if I showed up late to practice, they wouldn't penalize me. You know, if I didn't hustle, they wouldn't take me out the game. You know, if I caught a little small attitude, they wouldn't say nothing to me. So I always grew up with a sense of entitlement from my coaches. And then once I got to the professional level, I realized that, you know, none of that stuff works. You know, so when I started my academy, that's what really gives me the motivate, the driving factor to, you know, be that mentor, to be that coach that knows how to push, knows how to pull, and kind of be that mentor. Because I didn't have that. Like, I didn't have that coach. You know, I always say the one thing everybody remembers is their favorite coach and favorite teacher. I never had a coach who cared enough to get on my butt, you know, when I needed it. So when it comes to that question like that, man, I thank God that I grew up in an environment where I had older friends, you know, that took me under their wings and taught me what was acceptable and what was not and how to carry myself. And they would never, you know, let me get out of line like that.
Do you think if you had a coach that got you a little more?
For sure. Because I like I said, I wasn't a kid that was like bad. But I didn't have that mentor to show me how to work the right way. Like, I worked hard, you know, but I didn't have that mentor to show me how to work smarter, you know, who took me under the wing. Like, I made it off of just pure athleticism. Yeah. Like, I didn't know how to swing the bat the right way. I didn't know how to, even in basketball, like, I can always shoot, but I didn't know, like, the shell defense. I didn't know, I didn't have no coaching. You know, in the inner city, we didn't have that kind of coaching. So we just played off of just not wanting to lose, you know? Yeah. But if I had a coach, man, my career, I tell these parents, they don't understand how important mentorship is. Not really a coach, just a mentor, you know? That if I'm going down, if I have a bad thought in my head where it's like, I want to quit or I don't want to play today, you know, if you have that mentor, that'll pull you back on the right path. A lot of kids don't have that mentorship and they end up drifting off to the wrong path.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I definitely agree with that.
So talk about that. So you brought it, you kind of brought it up with your academy. Can you talk about your academy and what you got going with that?
Yeah. So I started the academy around 2010, but I was still playing basketball overseas. So I would come home, I would train kids, still work out in basketball, and then I would leave and go overseas. And I did that until about 2014. That's when my academy started growing. And my basketball, I was at the peak of my basketball career too, man. I had just made like import of the year. You know, I was in Qatar. They offered me a passport. Like, I was like at the peak of my basketball career. I was making good money. Like, everything was just falling into place. I was going to the cups. I was going to the cups after the season, all the big cups. And then, you know, I started getting close to these kids, and every time I would leave, I would feel like a father walking out the kid life, you know, because I was a mentor to the kids, you know. So every time I leave, I'll be gone 6-7 months, come back, and then they would be sad. And, you know, I felt like it was a circle of life repeating with me. You know, every time I leave these kids, I felt like, you know, I was a father leaving the kid. And after 1 year, man, I just kind of just prayed on it and just kind of stepped away and just told God to lead my faith, man. And everything kind of fell into place with my baseball academy. And I opened it up in 2014 full time.
Yeah, I remember when the baseball academy started taking off, because I can remember Mike telling me about it. And he said, "Man, Jay Jones doing some good stuff, man. He wanted to talk. Y'all, I guess y'all was talking about doing something together.
Yeah, doing
I
something.
remember. I remember when it took off. As far as the baseball academy goes, what's your age range?
We go from about 6 years old all the way up to college. 5, 6 year olds all the way up to college. I based my academy on development, man. Like I guess from playing at that level, me and Mike talk about this all the time. You realize the younger years don't matter. You know, you realize the 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. None of those years matter because none of these kids really fully hit puberty. And so I just develop, man. I believe in development till these kids get around 15, 16 years old. Then it's time to make some money, you know, as far as the kids, scholarship wise, contract wise, whatever they come to, man. So they start at 6 and go all the way up to 19, 20 years old, college kids.
Gotcha. How many kids do you have in the academy right now?
I would say probably close to about 300 kids now. Yeah, I would say close to about 270, 280 kids. And that's my main thing, man. I tell every parent, every kid that come here go to college. I put 30-some kids in college last year. I put 20 kids so far this year. I put over 150 kids so far in school since 2014. Now, like I tell the kids, the level of college you go play at, that determines your skill level and how hard you want it. I got a kid this year going to Oklahoma. He's actually in the draft camp right now in Cali, you know. So, I mean, the main thing is just getting these kids looks and getting them opportunities, man. So, you know, it was tough, man. Like I know you talk to Mike all the time, and man, my career, it was hard to walk away from, man. But I realized these kids, life was more than just myself, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a huge sacrifice, especially having you when you play baseball. You play baseball for 9 years, and I'm assuming you was probably about 26 years old when you.
Yep, and I went to China. Hey, but what was crazy? I left the Marlins. This true story, man. I got released from the Marlins. They wanted to do like put me in a independent league for a couple of months, and I never forget, before I left the camp, I was talking to Cyril. I went to the Fundy because I was playing in the pro-am. I was still playing baseball, so I was playing in the pro-am, and then Cyril was like, hey, you know, you ready to hoop? And I'm like, nah, like I'm playing baseball right now. And I think I got released in June or July. And I was in China in August hooping. Like, in a matter of 2 weeks, you know, I went and got my passport, went to China with Cyril, man, and then my career took off. I met an agent out there, and then I stayed in the Middle East the most of my career, you know. So, but yeah, in a matter of 2 weeks, man, I went from playing professional baseball to basketball in a matter of 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's that transition from that baseball to that basketball, and then the throwing the international on top of that. There had to be some type of like. I mean, I'm assuming you wasn't like culture shock because you've been around all types of people, but when you actually leave that professional baseball setting and you go international basketball, that's a lot of different changes for you.
I was culture shocked for sure, man. Like I never been out the country like that. You know, I mean, you know, you go to Mexico, you know, but to go to China, man, that was my first time flying 18 plus hours. And then, you know, time difference. And then when you get out to China, the food difference, you know, everything was a culture shock, man. But I was hooping. You know, I felt relieved. So it was easy for me to adapt to it because I was just happy to be playing basketball.
What do you think?
That China trip is definitely a culture shock.
Culture shock, for sure.
Getting over there with the food, and you just like, man, what the hell are they eating over here?
Yeah, and you know what's crazy? The first couple of meals, they would bring all of the food to your table with the head on it. Like they wouldn't cut the head off. So when they bring the chicken, I'll never get my first meal. They come to they bring the chicken on the table, man, and they sit on them tables that spin around.
The round table.
The round table that spin, man, and that chicken the chicken looked like it just got done walking outside, man. And I was like, Lord. And so after that, I was just KFC, McDonald's. You know, I lived on that fat. You know, I eat them chips. You know, I wasn't really dealing with that food, man, the first couple of months.
McDonald's hit different when you're in China, man.
Hey, they had a chicken Big Mac. I'll never forget they had chicken Big Mac in China. I lived on that, man. But you know, I soaked it all in, man, and you know, I met some good friends, and you know, and it was a great career, man. But I just tell these kids to enjoy it because they go by so fast, man. Like that's why I commend Mike. I was talking to Mike the other day. I'm like, Mike, man, you still like that's crazy. Like I'm like, Mike, I remember we was in. I think my last cup, me and Mike were in Indonesia together. It was in Jakarta. You know, that's the last time I played with Mike overseas, and I'm like, man, that was close to 10 years ago. He's still out there balling.
Yeah,
you know,
38 years old, man.
Still getting it, man. But yeah, man, that China trip was that I think we flew into Korea. We flew into Seoul, and then from Korea we flew to China.
Yeah. So what's one of the biggest things that you try to get over to the kids outside of it goes fast, right?
And it's not. I don't think it's really the kids. It's the parents. Because you can't teach an adult how to be an adult, but you can teach a kid how to be an adult.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of the parents try to rush the development. A lot of the what I see right now in youth sports is very few people want to develop kids because all the parents care about now is winning. Mm-hmm. So not all the parents, but most of the parents. So the coaches, our programs don't really focus on development because if they focus on development, they're going to lose players because they're not winning. You know, so you can't have the both. Either you develop or you win. You know, but when you win, a lot of times you don't develop the kids. So I always tell my parents and my kids to just trust the process. I mean, you know, that's all life is about. Whether you playing sports, whether you going to college, like you don't graduate with your master's overnight. You know, you don't become a great basketball player overnight. So all I really do is I stress to the kids is always three things I tell them. I'll tell them work hard, have a good attitude, and have fun. You know, you do those three things, then life will take care of itself.
Absolutely.
So with your academy, how's it structured? Like, do you have? Is it set up where you training, or is it set up where you training and you have teams?
Yes, we have teams. So
okay.
we do training. So I mean, team practice usually start at 6:30 to 8:30. Sometimes at 5:30. So we have a team of coaches. You know, we have 15 coaches in the organization that do training with all the kids, and then we do training and we do practices. You know, so we have teams as well. So that's kind of how it's set up. You know. A full system.
Y'all play year round?
Year round. Yeah, we take a break for August, a couple of weeks in August, and then we break in December. But they play every other weekend, so we don't burn them out. They only play 2 times a month, you know. So we don't sit up there and burn them out and have them play all the time. We still want them to have a life as well.
How many teams do you have, like per age group?
I think we have 22 teams right now.
Okay.
So the 8, 9s, and 10s, and then we go 7, 8, 9s, and 10s, and then when we get to 11s, we start having about 3 teams at every age group, from 11 all the way up to high school and college.
So earlier you said something about the parents, right? You know, you can't teach an adult how to be a parent or whatever. If when you have these kids, how important is it for you? You say you only play a couple of times a month.
Play twice a month.
How important is it for you to allow those kids still to be kids? Because I know I see parents at these games, and parents, it's a lot of pressure. Like, and I'm just speaking from a basketball standpoint because I don't know the baseball arena like that.
It's the same.
And I see these parents in the stands putting all this pressure on these kids to win, right? To win. But like you said, they're not, if you're winning, you're probably not doing a whole bunch of development. Right? And that's why we got dudes that's in the NBA right now that can't do a whole lot with their left.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
But how important is it for you to help the parents understand that balance? They got to have the balance. These kids still got to be kids, right? Because the old school saying is, if you want it, you're gonna have to sacrifice, right? You're gonna have to not be a kid when you're supposed to be a kid, and then once you get all your stuff, then you go back and revisit whatever you want to revisit. Is that kind of the mentality that some of these parents still have, or is it?
I mean, some parents get it and some don't. You know, and the worst thing I see is that I see a kid leave my organization at 9 years old. Because I don't recruit kids. Never have, never will. You know, I'm not about to go up to a kid parent and say, hey, you know, could you come play for us? Just give me a kid that want to play. You know, I remember Big Lucas told me one time, like, coaching is not sitting on the chair hand picking kids. Coaching is taking any kid that want to learn how to play and teach them how to play that game. And I firmly believe that, man. And I have to tell these parents, like, these are kids first. Like, they can't process the mental stuff that we can. And then baseball is a hard sport. You know, when you watch baseball, look at the All-Star break and see how many guys are batting 300. And that means you're getting out 7 times out of 10 and you're still an All-Star. You know, and so I have to tell these parents sometimes, like, and I tell myself that, like, don't forget how hard this game is. Because It's easy, just like basketball. It's easy when you're on the outside looking in and you're like, man, this kid should be doing this kid should be doing that, this game should be this way, he should make these simple mistakes. But then you have to put yourself in the mindset of a kid, put yourself back in that 12-year-old body or that 12-year-old mind frame as a coach. And I think that's why it's important to have coaches that have played the game, because at the end of the day, we have a lot of, and there's no offense, we have a lot of YouTube coaches, you know, and I hated playing for those guys. Like, I hated playing for a coach that didn't play the game. And it wasn't because they didn't know the game, but they didn't know what I went through mentally. They didn't know what I went through physically. They didn't know if I came to the gym today and my legs was just dead. They didn't know how it felt when your body didn't feel that way. You know, and that's the kind of the thing that when I'm coaching or when I'm teaching kids, I always try to remember where I was at that level mentally, so I can put myself back in that kid's shoes and say, yeah, maybe this kid, he don't feel it today. He's 11 years old. His mindset is on going to Waterworld, not playing baseball. I've been there before. So let's try to find a way to get this kid motivated to play. You know, we might have bad games, bad weeks, you know, so it's always about trying to relate to that kid mentally, to put yourself back in their shoes. You know, parents too, man. These parents, I'm like, man, you know, you can't live through these kids like that, man.
Right, your time is over with.
It's over with. It's done. It's done for sure.
Earlier, you said when you signed your first deal at 17, you wasn't prepared for. The baseball part, you was good, but the other stuff you wasn't prepared for.
Mm-mm.
Now, if you have a kid in your organization that's facing something similar, I mean, I think even going to college and coming out of college and making that kind of money will still be a lot of weight, because you never know what somebody's family situation is.
Yeah. How
would you go about helping that person prepare for that?
I mean, it was so when I signed my first contract, nobody in my family has ever had that kind of opportunity. So nobody was ever able to give me that firsthand advice on what to expect. I mean, it went from being a game to a job in a matter of, like, I remember I signed my first contract. I'll never forget. I used to I prayed to be a professional baseball player. I'll never forget. I signed my contract and I walked outside and I looked at my hands and was like, man, I'm still the same person. You know, I always thought that, you know, professional athletes were superheroes, because that's what the media made them be. Like, oh, I'm gonna sign this deal and I'm gonna become bigger than life. And man, when I signed my contract, man, it was just like, you know, people don't know how much money you have, but they speculate how much money you have.
Yeah.
And life went, hey, let me have this. Can I have that? I had friends that came from nowhere. You know, it was, you know, everybody depended on me to buy them stuff, you know, and I let that get the best of me, because what I learned was what I do is not who I am. Right. But when I was 17 years old, coming from Southwest Houston, Texas, inner city, when I signed my contract, it became my identity. It was no longer Josh Jones. It was now Josh Jones, the professional baseball player.
Yeah.
Right. So everywhere I went, that label was attached to me. So my first time getting released, I didn't know how to handle it. And it was like, I got cut, man, and I got released and sent home. And I didn't want to go out in public because I wasn't mature enough to know how to understand like that, just like that's a part of professional sports.
Right.
You know, so it was tough for me, man, because I didn't have that home structure that can, you know, that help mold me to know like you gotta be mentally tougher than, you know, the situation. So when I have kids now, I tell them like, you know, these kids come from good backgrounds, good homes, you know, good fathers, you know, that can help guide them through those decisions for sure. But I mean, it was tough for me, man. Like it was a shell shock, man. It was crazy.
How does it work in baseball with agents? Like how'd you pick your agent?
So I got my agent after I signed my deal, right? Because baseball go like on slot value, you know, and then they get 3 to 5%, whatever, depending on what agent you with. They get their top agency, they'll get 5% of your contract. You know, if they're just starting off, they'll get 3%. You know, the guys in the middle of the road get 4%. So when I signed my agent, my first agent I actually signed was Bo Porter used to be an agent. The guy that used to the former Astros manager was an agent before he became a coach. And I actually signed my first agency deal with him when I got to Cincinnati. I didn't have an agent with the Reds. I just depended on my scout a lot.
Okay.
Josh, two things. One, because we have a lot of parents, youth parents who got a lot of kids in youth sports that watch the podcast.
Okay.
If you had one thing to say to parents when looking for an organization to join, one, what should they be looking in? And then two, what would you tell a young kid that's growing up right now, looking to you know, further that, no, just to get better in sports?
I'm with you. The first thing I tell a parent is find out what's the mission statement for their organization. And don't just find out through words, find out through actions. Because a lot of people can sell you on dreams and sell you on how their organization is, but find out, is it about is it about the brand or is it about the kid? Right? I always say you have 3 different kind of organizations. You have the daddy ball, you know, which you find in the younger ages because a lot of coaches don't want to coach the 5, 6, 7-year-olds because it's hard to coach them. And then you have the organizations that's about the brand. And when I say the brand, I mean, you know, every month new players coming in. You know, it's around like a business, you know. And then you have the organization that's about development. And those are the organizations I always stress for the parents to put their kids in, especially in the adolescent youth ages, because those are the kids that end up becoming better than the kids who are just playing on natural talent at a young age. So when it comes to a parent, I always tell them, find somebody you can trust, man. Like you have to find an organization, a coach, somebody that loves your kid and cares about your kid and trust them through the good, the bad, the ugly, the ins and outs. Like trust that person, whatever team it is, you have to trust somebody who's been to where you want your kid to go. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's kind of the main thing that I always tell these parents. It's about finding somebody that's invested in your kid, not just invested in a paycheck. You know, I see these kids, man, they'll play with you for 2-3 months, and then these organizations see another kid that's better, and they say, okay, we're gonna cut your kid in the middle of a season to pick up another kid because he's better. And they're not doing any justice for the kids, but they're doing justice for their brand because they're winning and they're making their brand look good. But when is enough? Are you going to sacrifice this kid career just to make your brand as an adult look better? You know, so I tell these parents, man, you have to find somebody you can trust and do it. I mean, there's so many options now that these parents bounce around, and it's not the kids, it's the parents. They bounce around from team to team to team to team. And now your kid is all of a sudden 15 years old and he hasn't learned anything because you spent your whole youth career just trying to chase rings and chasing statistics and rankings that none of that stuff matters.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And then,
So
what would
yeah,
you say to a kid that's in this youth sports arena trying to make it to a level, not necessarily a professional level, but just trying to be good at their craft?
I say this to the kid, right? And this was my life, you know, and I think that's what separated me from my peers, because I wasn't always the best, but are you willing to give up the life you have now for the life you want to have in the future? You know, and I tell my kids, greatness requires sacrifice. You know, everything that's great has sacrificed something. You can't just be good anymore. Anybody can be good, right? But you have to sacrifice who you are now for who you want to be. And so I tell my kids that, like, if you want this to be your job one day, you have to work at this like it's your job right now. Because if you don't work at this like your job right now, when it does become your job, you're not gonna make it. You're not gonna last because you never established that work ethic. And I think, Russ, we talked about that earlier. You have some players in the league right now who they don't know how to work hard. They don't know what it's like to go in the gym and grind 7-8 hours a day. They don't know what it's like to hit adversity. They don't know how to handle the media. They don't know how to react to certain things because their upbringing, everything was just hand-fed to them. Everything was spoon-fed, you know? So they never had to get in there and take criticism, constructive criticism, and work. So I always tell my kids, man, if you want to have this as your career, you got to work at it now. You can't wait till you're 16 years old. You know, the work ethic has to be installed in you as a 9 and 10-year-old, you know, every day getting it, you know?
yeah, that's facts. Hey, before we let you get out of here, man, let's talk about them cars, man.
Yeah. What you want to talk about?
Man, first of all, man, how many you got? Because I be seeing them popping up. That Cut Dog is one of my favorite joints.
Hey, you know what's crazy? That T-top. So I've always I passed up on the 86 Monte Carlo T-top maybe like a year ago. It was in Louisiana, and I just didn't feel like driving out there because, you know, you drive to see a car and there's nothing like you see on pictures.
Absolutely.
You know? So when that T-top popped up, man, I've always wanted that T-top Cutlass of Monte Carlo, so I ended up driving down to Beaumont, man, to pick up the car. But man, I would have to say I probably 21 cars right now.
Damn.
You know, between the paint shop, between the body shop. I got a 68 Cutlass. I mean, not Cutlass, a 68 Lincoln I'm working on right now. I just finished my Fox body, my Menace to Society.
I saw that one.
Yeah.
That's dope. Yeah.
And I got the Benz with the Lorenzo. So, you know, I'm kind of right now. I'm getting in this mindset of fast cars. You know, like I want to go fast right now. I did the old schools. You know, so now I'm more like into the cars that go a little faster. You know, and I tell my wife, I'm like, this is an investment. You know, like she don't hit it until I make a sale, until I get tired of driving, and then I sell it, and she all on board with it.
You what's your favorite one? You got a favorite?
Man, my favorite right now, that Cutlass.
Yeah, that color's nice.
Color's nice.
White.
Yeah, my favorite is the Cutlass. It was the 64 Caddy and then the 96 Impala. So the 96 Impala was like my favorite, but then everybody started driving them. You know, when Nipsey came out, 96 Impala, Thug Life on Wheels, like all of a sudden everybody wanted the 96 Impala. So I got tired of that one, man. So I end up, you know, getting into the Caddy. But then when you drive those old cars like the 60s and 50s, it's never a smooth ride. And whenever you leave the house, you gotta have AAA on speed dial. You know, you don't never know if you're gonna make it back home, man. So, but that Cutlass and that Fox body right now, like my two favorite right now.
Yeah, recently you posted something about if you ain't ever drove a Tesla, go do that.
Hey, I'm not a billboard for it, man, but them cars amazing. Like it's like a go-kart. It's like you're driving a go-kart, man, like a golf cart. You hit the gas and it's like no noise, there's no shifting gears, it just goes, you know, and it goes 0 to 60 like in 2 seconds, man. So that's kind of been my new toy, man. And, you know, I've always, it's a true story. I never forget, like my mom, when I first got my contract, you know, I stay humble with the cars, man, because I know the investment is pretty horrible, man. But I've seen so many guys in the locker room lose it all behind cars, you know. And I never forget, like my first year I had an Expedition, Eddie Bauer, and I was with the Angels, man. And we finished the game. I think we was playing the A's that day, and we finished the game. and I was driving out the locker room. You know, when you drive out the locker room, and you drive out the parking lot, the kids be out there waiting for autographs and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was in my expedition, and the kid, I rolled down my window, and the kid told me, "I thought you was a professional baseball player. Why are you driving an expedition?" Yo, and I never forget that. So I always go back to that moment, man. That just really humbled me and put me back into this perspective, because I was thinking about going get me a Range Rover in my first contract, man, or get me something different, man. And my mom was like, "No, you getting this Eddie Bauer expedition, man." So it was, ever since I got the expedition, man, I've always been just getting cars and buy them, sell them, keep them. So that kind of started off, man. But that was like my first humbling experience, man. The kid told me, "Well, how you gonna be a professional baseball player? You driving the expedition?" You know, and that was just a funny story, man. That was,
kids be letting you know, bro.
Tell you the truth.
They will let you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, they let you know.
You gonna be, it's gonna trip you out, but the kids will let you know.
All right, Josh. So you man, you know your cars. You was born on June 29th, correct?
Yeah, June 29th. Yeah.
I'm born on June 29th. So
there we go.
Same
All
birthday. Right. So
okay.
you're Cancer, so I know you know what you're talking about. So I'm gonna ask you this, because I've been telling my wife my next vehicle is gonna be a Tesla. So
hey,
is it worth getting one?
Do it.
Okay.
Do it. All I say is, if you see, you live in the inner city of Houston?
No, I stay near Austin in San Marcos.
Oh, you cool, because you like, the only reason why I say, like, with you not having to drive far is cool.
Yeah.
Like, I just moved to the outskirts of Angleton. So the thing is, I have to fully charge every night before I leave, because if I drive to Houston and drive back, that's 2 hours. But if I'm like going around the city, man, like, honestly, that's the best car I've ever driven.
Yeah.
And I'm not just saying that to say it.
Yeah.
That Tesla is the best car as far as technology, man. You get in there, you don't even start the car. Like, you get in, it cut on, you walk out, it cut off. Like you can, the car stay at a certain temperature all day. Like, it's a good car, man. So if you're thinking about getting one, yeah, let me know, man. And if you ever come in town, you can drive mine. Like, I love it though, man. It's an amazing car.
All right, that's a bet.
That's what's up. Hey, Josh, man, we really appreciate you giving us some time today, man. I know you're a busy man. Good luck with everything going forward, man. And I appreciate everything you're doing out there, man. Because I see you.
And the same to you all, man. Like I said, it's, basketball, Mike, me, you, family. I just, all that brung us together. Victor, I just met you today, man. That brung us together, man. But we have to stay in touch, man. Life is too short. So, anytime I can do something to help you all out, whether it's speaking to kids, whether it's, donating to charity, whatever I can do, man, let me know, reach out to me, man. And life is bigger than just us, so whatever I can do to help you all, man, or your facilities or whatever, man, just reach out to me, man. I'm only one phone call away, man, but I'm proud of you as well, man. I've seen you grow over the years also, man. And you're doing what you're doing also.
All right. Appreciate you, man.
All right, man. And nice to meet you, Vic.
You too, man. Have a good one.
All right. Y'all be blessed.
Like, ooh, what I could do with a couple bands. Like, how I could have flipped that to some other bands. Like, ooh, I could have been a motherfucking man. Hold up, wait.